picture the scene. It is November 7th, 1927.
Right, so the big 10-year anniversary.
Exactly. We are right in the middle of Red Square for this massive 10th anniversary of the October Revolution. Red banners are just flying everywhere you look.
Oh, I'm sure it was quite the spectacle.
Yeah, totally. Columns of workers and soldiers are marching past the Kremlin. I mean, the state apparatus is putting on this overwhelming display of its own power, really cementing its legitimacy.
But there's a catch, right?
Huge catch. If you look closely, scattered through this massive crowd, amidst all this official state celebration, small groups of people are unfurling their own banners.
Wait, right in the middle of the state parade.
Right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And they are demanding the fulfillment of Lenin's testament. They're demanding a return to party democracy.
That is incredibly bold.
It is. And instantly, the secret police, the GPU, they move in. Arrests begin right there in the middle of the crowd.
Wow. Just sweeping people up.
Yeah, and meanwhile, across town, the apartment of a man named Ivar Smilga is being completely demolished by state agents.
And Smilga, I mean, he was not a nobody.
Not at all. He was a man Lenin himself personally summoned to lead the Petrograd uprising 10 years prior.
Right.
And now, his home is just being torn apart. The opposition is no longer just a dissenting faction with different ideas, you know? The state is physically treating them as an absolute enemy.
Which really brings us right into the core mission of this deep dive today.
Yes, let's get into it.
Because we are exploring a very specific, really pivotal historical question here. Like, how exactly was the revolutionary wing of Bolshevism destroyed?
Right.
Because if you look at the history, it wasn't destroyed by foreign armies invading. It wasn't destroyed by wealthy elites or, the White Guards.
That was an inside job.
Exactly. It was destroyed completely from within the party itself.
Right. And to really understand how a revolution eats its own like this, we need to be super clear about how we're approaching this topic today.
Definitely. We have to set the ground rules for the listener.
Yeah. We aren't picking political sides here. We are not endorsing the viewpoints of any of these factions.
No, not at all.
We are just looking at the cold, hard primary sources to see how the actual mechanics of power shifted. My role today is to anchor us in the physical reality of these events, the places, the dates, the raw human stakes of what actually went down.
And my role is to ground us in those primary documents. I'll be bringing in the exact, verified words from the secret police reports, the personal letters, and the theoretical defenses given at the time.
Which are just fascinating.
They really are. We want to unpack the underlying logic and the step-by-step mechanics of this internal collapse.
All right, well, let's unpack this. To understand why state police are arresting the original Bolsheviks in Red Square in 1927, we have to rewind just a little bit.
Yeah, back up a few years.
Exactly. We need to look at how a completely paradoxical alliance formed in the years leading up to this.
Right, because originally after Lenin died, the ruling power in the Soviet Union was a troika.
Right, a three-man alliance.
Yes. Stalin, Zinoviev, and Kamenev. And their main goal for 3 whole years was basically to isolate and destroy Leon Trotsky.
But eventually, that ruling troika fractures. Zinoviev and Kamenev are driven out of power by Stalin. And where do they turn?
I mean, they turn right back to Trotsky.
It's just wild.
It is a massive, almost unbelievable reversal. Zinoviev and Kamenev had literally led the campaign to rewrite party history, to make Trotsky look like an enemy.
Yeah.
And now they come to him admitting that he had been right about the growing bureaucracy all along.
And we actually have the exact record of that first meeting, right, after 3 years of total estrangement.
We do. And Kamenev offered a remarkably naive assessment of the situation, honestly. He declared, quote, "It is enough for you and Zinoviev to appear on the same platform, and the party will find its true central committee."
Wait, really? Just, hey guys, we're friends now, and he thought the entire country would just fix itself.
Exactly. He really thought their historical prestige would just be enough.
Wow.
But Trotsky understood that the bureaucracy wasn't just going to step aside out of respect. He gave them a very sober warning.
What did he say?
He said, quote, "We must aim far ahead. We must prepare for a long and serious struggle."
Because he knew what they were up against.
Right. And we also have the assessment of Trotsky's comrade, Merchkovsky, who made a brutally blunt prediction about this new partnership with former enemies.
Oh, this quote is great.
Yeah, he said, quote, "Stalin will deceive and Zinoviev will sneak away."
I have to stop you there because I don't buy the logic of making this deal in the first place.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, let's put this in modern terms for the listener for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Imagine a hostile corporate boardroom takeover. You team up with your bitter old rival to oust a corrupt CEO.
Right.
But you already know your new partner is going to fold under pressure. Worse, you know the CEO doesn't just sit in the big chair. The CEO hired the HR department, he pays the security guards, he controls the building's entire security system.
He literally holds the keys.
Exactly. You can have all the original company founders on your side, but the CEO can literally lock you out of the building. So if Trotsky's allies knew Zinoviev would sneak away, and they knew Stalin controlled the state apparatus, why step into that trap? Why agree to the merger?
Because it was a strict political necessity based on the masses of people involved.
Okay.
Zinoviev and Kamenev weren't just two guys, Behind them stood thousands of revolutionary Leningrad workers.
Ah, so it was about the numbers.
Exactly. Trotsky's faction believed the task was to unite all the working-class forces that were still willing to fight the bureaucracy over the fundamental program of the revolution.
Which meant what, practically?
Well, they were fighting for party democracy, for industrialization, and most importantly, they had to unite against Stalin's new theory of socialism in one country.
Okay, let's break that down for the listener, because that phrase, it sounds like historical jargon, but it's actually the key to everything.
It really is the turning point.
What does socialism in one country actually mean in practice? And why was it such a betrayal to Trotsky's faction?
Essentially, the original Marxist idea was world revolution. The belief was that Russia was too backward and agrarian to build socialism completely alone.
Right, they needed help.
Exactly. They needed the working classes of advanced countries like Germany and Britain to overthrow their own governments and help Russia out.
But Stalin's faction changed that.
Yes. They introduced socialism in one country, which basically said, no, we can build a socialist utopia all by ourselves, right here, without outside help.
So it's circling the wagons, it's turning inward instead of outward.
Precisely. And while it sounded very patriotic, Trotsky argued it was actually the political expression of the new bureaucracy's material interests.
It's like they just wanted to protect their job.
Exactly. The administrators and clerks didn't want the risk and the chaos of global revolution anymore. They wanted stability, power, and their own comfortable positions secured.
So this alliance with Zinoviev and Kamenev, it wasn't just a squabble over personalities.
No, not at all. It was a fight to preserve the core, outward-looking tenets of their movement against this inward-looking bureaucratic takeover.
But the Stalinist apparatus, that bureaucracy, they didn't treat this new united opposition as a friendly debating society.
Definitely not.
They didn't argue ideas in a town hall. They started building a police state right inside their own party.
Yeah, the repression was immediate.
If you were part of the opposition, you were expelled from the party, you were fired from your job, you were transferred to some remote town in the middle of nowhere, and you were put under GPU surveillance.
And physical violence, too.
Exactly. If you tried to hold a local meeting to discuss your platform, a literal gang of party functionaries would show up and physically break it up.
Because the apparatus was a material force, you can't fight a police state with just historical prestige. It responded with relentless organizational repression.
Right, but you can't just unleash the secret police on the people who founded your country without some sort of, pseudo-legal justification.
Stalin needed a tribunal.
Which brings us to the massive showdown in June 1927. This happens right after the crushing defeat of the Chinese Revolution, which Trotsky had actually warned about.
He saw it coming.
He did. So Trotsky is dragged before the Central Control Commission. Now, historically, this was supposed to be a sort of independent internal ethics committee for the party.
Right, an impartial body.
In theory. But by 1927, it was a body entirely packed with Stalin's loyalists. They designed this session to be a final, concerted attack on the opposition.
But Trotsky doesn't just defend himself, does he?
No, he turns it into a counterassault.
It's amazing. He tells his accusers to their faces that they are sitting there as representatives of the bureaucracy, not the revolution.
Oh, that had to sting.
And he gives an incredibly precise theoretical explanation for why the left wing was currently facing defeat. We have his exact words to the commission.
What did he say?
He said, quote, "In 1923, we told the Soviet proletariat that the German proletariat would win soon. Then we talked to it about the impending victory of the general strike in England. None of this materialized. And then came the counter-revolutionary coup in China."
Just a string of defeats.
Exactly. He continues, quote, "All of this has left an imprint on our proletariat. After this, an ebb of the revolutionary tide is inevitable, even if it is temporary."
See, That is the real aha moment for me.
How so?
He isn't just complaining that Stalin is fighting dirty. He is analyzing his own political defeat as a symptom of a global political recession.
Yes.
He is diagnosing the objective conditions of the world. He's saying to them, look, we lost the revolution in Germany, we lost the general strike in Britain, we lost the revolution in China, and those external defeats drained the energy of the Russian working class.
Just simple exhaustion.
Exactly. A worker in Moscow sees all these global defeats and they get tired, they get cynical, they just want stability. And that exhaustion is exactly what empowers a conservative bureaucracy to take over.
That is exactly the Marxist method at work right there.
Yeah.
He is diagnosing the objective conditions that produce the defeat of his own faction.
Right.
He insists the ebb is temporary, but he absolutely refuses to minimize it or lie to the workers about it. He explains the international and class processes that put him in the chair of the accused and put the bureaucrats in the chairs of the accusers.
And because he refused to back down, and because he used that sharp theoretical clarity to expose exactly what the bureaucracy was doing, the apparatus realized they couldn't just debate him anymore.
Yeah, they had to shut him down completely.
They moved to formally outlaw his existence. So in the summer of 1927, the United Opposition gathers 3,688 signatures from old Bolsheviks on a comprehensive platform document.
Almost 4,000 signatures.
Yeah, and we were talking about the signatures of the people who literally built the party, the people who commanded the Red Army during the Civil War.
The old guard.
Exactly. The document calls for a return to party democracy and an end to the bureaucratic stranglehold. And Stalin's response? He simply bans it.
Just outlaws it entirely.
He declares it a counter-revolutionary document and deploys the secret police to seize all copies. Oppositionists are completely banned from speaking to workers at the factories.
The news was really tightening rapidly at this point, and Trotsky knew exactly where it was leading.
He had to.
He did. At a meeting on November 5th, this is just 2 days before those Red Square protests we started with, he spoke some of the most defiant words of his life.
What did he say?
He said, quote, "Your attempts to intimidate us, to push us from the ranks of the workers' movement will fail. You can only remove us from the ranks of the workers' movement with our flesh and blood."
Wow.
And what is absolutely chilling about that specific sentence is that years later in the archives, that line was found underlined in red crayon.
Wait, red crayon?
Yes, and it was most likely underlined by Stalin himself.
That is terrifying. You can only remove us with our flesh and blood, and the apparatus basically decides to take that literally.
They really do.
Which takes us to the climax in December 1927 at the 15th Party Congress. Trotsky and the leaders of the opposition are technically permitted to speak, but it is a complete trap.
A total setup.
Stalin used his role as general secretary to pack the Congress with his loyalists. When Trotsky and the others tried to speak, they didn't just disfigure them, they orchestrated a literal physical wall of noise.
Oh, like shouting them down.
Worse, they used whistles, they screamed, they threw things, they engineered a mob to physically silence them, and then the Congress votes to formally expel the left opposition from the party. Zinoviev, Kamenev, Trotsky, and hundreds of others are permanently stripped of their membership.
I mean, we really have to stop and weigh the historical gravity of this moment. December 1927.
It's massive.
This was the formal end of Bolshevism as a living, breathing political movement inside the Soviet Union.
Yeah, it's over.
Think about it. The party that had led the revolution, that had defeated the invading armies and founded the Communist International, was effectively dead. The bureaucratic apparatus was now totally, structurally in control.
The party was dead, yes, but the human beings who built it were not.
True.
So what actually happens to those thousands of people who were just expelled and outlawed? Well, in January 1928, the physical punishment begins.
Right.
Trotsky is arrested. He is sentenced to exile in Alma-Ata. This is a super remote city in Central Asia on the edge of the steppe, literally thousands of miles away from the political center of Moscow.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. The GPU arrives at his apartment to take him. He refuses to open the door, basically making them own their violence, so they break it down.
Wow.
He refuses to walk, so state agents have to physically carry the co-leader of the Russian Revolution out to a train, along with his wife and his son.
Stalin genuinely thought exile would silence him. He actually sent a GPU representative to Alma-Ata to deliver an ultimatum to Trotsky.
What was the ultimatum?
Basically stop the oppositional activity, or face complete isolation and worse. But Trotsky wrote back to the Central Committee flatly refusing to renounce the struggle.
I wouldn't expect anything less from him.
Right. He wrote, quote, To renounce political activity would be to renounce the preparations for tomorrow.
But man, the conditions they were subjected to in exile were incredibly brutal. The state initiates this deliberate policy of malign neglect.
Just letting them rot.
Basically, yes. Thousands of oppositionists are sent to remote, harsh colonies. They contract malaria. They are completely isolated from regular communication. The human cost of this bureaucracy is just staggering.
It really is tragic.
Trotsky's own secretary, Georgy Butov, is arrested and actually dies from the effects of a hunger strike in prison. And Trotsky's youngest daughter, Nina, who was this key figure in the underground opposition in Soviet Ukraine, she contracts tuberculosis.
Oh, no.
And she is deliberately denied medical treatment as a matter of state policy, and she dies.
It is just an immense physical and psychological toll. But despite that nightmare, we actually have primary source proof that the opposition did not break.
They kept going.
They survived underground. In October 1928, the head of the OGPU secret police, Genrikh Yagoda, wrote a highly classified report complaining about their resilience.
I bet he was furious.
He was. He reported, quote, "In view of the serious increase in the activity of the underground Trotskyist organization mass distribution of leaflets, attempts to widely involve non-party workers in the opposition movement, preparation of speeches for the 11th anniversary of the October Revolution, the organization of strikes at enterprises. On October 20, we liquidated part of the underground Leningrad activist group."
Wait, wow. So they were literally organizing strikes and distributing mass leaflets even while being hunted and exiled by their own former comrades.
Yes. And if we pull all of this together and connect it to the bigger picture, it really answers the core question we posed at the start of this deep dive.
How the revolutionary wing was destroyed from within.
Exactly. The sources show us it wasn't just one single event, It was a four-step cumulative mechanism.
Let's walk through those steps because they really map out the anatomy of how a movement actually dies.
Okay, so first, ideological mythology. The bureaucracy rewrote history to isolate their opponents and make themselves look infallible.
Right.
Second, they changed the core program. Pushing socialism in one country was the political expression of the bureaucracy abandoning the world revolution to protect their own material interests.
Which leads to the third step.
Right. Third, they capitalized on the practical demoralization of the working class. The international defeats in places like Britain and China just exhausted the masses, which, Trotsky diagnosed so clearly.
And then the final blow.
Finally, the fourth step, organizational destruction. Once the masses were tired and the ideology was shifted, the bureaucracy used the police state to physically dismantle the opposition, ban their platforms, and exile their leaders.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? If there's one really profound thought to take away from this dive into the archives, it is about the mechanics of power and how fragile systems really are.
They are so vulnerable.
They really are. A movement born out of a mass democratic revolution was completely hijacked. But it wasn't defeated by foreign armies rolling across the border. It wasn't defeated by wealthy elites buying up influence.
No, it came from inside.
It was hollowed out by the very clerks, administrators, and functionaries it elevated to manage the state.
Yeah, the bureaucracy itself.
It is a stark warning about the nature of institutions. Bureaucratic control can completely devour a system from the inside out while keeping all the outward symbols entirely intact.
That's the scariest part.
It is. You can demolish the homes of the founders, you can arrest the revolutionaries in the streets, and you can exile them to the harsh edges of the steppe, all while the original banners are still proudly flying in Red Square.
Well said.
Next time on Episode 10. Exile, Depression, and the German Catastrophe.